Market Mantra. Market Mantra. Market Mantra. Market Mantra. Market Mantra. Market Mantra.
This is Akashvani. Good evening and welcome to this edition of Market Mantra, in which we give you a complete update on the economic, business and stock market news of the day. I am Gaurang Dhawanlal and with me is my co-anchor in Hindi, Vishal Sharma.
नमस्कार, मार्केट मंत्र के ताजा अंक में आपका स्वागत है। अगले 30 मिनट तक हम लाएंगे आप तक आर्थिक, व्यापारिक और शेयर बाजार की खबरें, साथ ही उन पर चर्चा भी करेंगे। और चर्चा के लिए आज स्टूडियो में आमंत्रित हैं आर्थिक पत्रकार दीपशिखा सिकरवार। दीपशिखा जी नमस्कार, स्टूडियो में आपका स्वागत।
नमस्कार विशाल जी।
और सबसे पहले हेडलाइंस के साथ है गौरा धवनलाल।
Thank you, Vishal, and Deepshika, welcome to the program. A quick look at the headlines. Government to sell 50 lakh tons of wheat and 25 lakh tons of rice in the open market to check retail prices. Parliament passes Digital Personal Data Protection Bill 2023. Key domestic stocks witnessed modest gains amid mixed global cues. Sensex closes near the 66,000 mark. Nifty settles above the 19,600 level. And Brent crude hits highest level since April to trade above $86.50 per barrel.
खुदरा कीमतों पर अंकुश लगाने के लिए सरकार 50 लाख टन गेहूं और 25 लाख टन चावल खुले बाजार में बेचेगी। व्यक्तिगत डाटा संरक्षण विधेयक 2023 संसद में पारित। प्रमुख घरेलू शेयर बाजारों में हल्की बढ़त दर्ज। सेंसेक्स 66,000 के निशान के करीब हुआ बंद। निफ्टी 19,600 अंक के स्तर से ऊपर पहुंचा। और ब्रेंट कच्चे तेल की कीमतें अप्रैल के बाद से अपने उच्चतम स्तर $86.50 प्रति बैरल से ऊपर। सबसे पहली खबर, खुदरा कीमतों पर अंकुश लगाने के लिए सरकार 50 लाख टन गेहूं और 25 लाख टन चावल खुले बाजार में बेचेगी। भारतीय खाद्य निगम ई नीलामी के माध्यम से ओपन मार्केट सेल योजना के अंतर्गत चरणबद्ध तरीके से गेहूं और चावल को खुले बाजार में बेचेगा। नई दिल्ली में मीडिया से बातचीत में खाद्य और सार्वजनिक वितरण विभाग के सचिव संजीव चोपड़ा ने कहा कि सरकार ने गेहूं और चावल की कीमतें कम करने का फैसला किया है। उन्होंने कहा कि सरकार को सूचना मिल रही है कि कई व्यापारी गेहूं का स्टॉक जमा कर रहे हैं, जिससे गेहूं की कीमतें बढ़ रही हैं। उन्होंने कहा कि चावल और गेहूं का पर्याप्त भंडार उपलब्ध है और सरकार का मुख्य उद्देश्य कीमतों को उचित स्तर पर रखना है। पिछले एक साल में खुदरा बाजार में गेहूं की कीमतें 6% से ज्यादा और थोक बाजार में 7% से ज्यादा बढ़ी हैं। इसी तरह चावल की कीमतें खुदरा बाजार में 10% से अधिक और थोक बाजार में 11% से अधिक बढ़ी हैं। दीपशिखा जी, ये जो सरकार ने निर्णय लिया है, इससे पहले हमने देखा कि गैर बासमती चावल के निर्यात पे भी सरकार ने रोक लगाई और अब ये खुले बाजार में जो बेचने का निर्णय लिया है सरकार ने गेहूं और चावल, क्या आप इसको कीमतों में इस पर प्रभावी अंकुश लग सकेगा, आपको लगता है?
देखिए, सरकार की तरफ से जो है ये कोशिश की जा रही है कि घरेलू जो हमारा बाजार है, मार्केट में जो घरेलू उपभोक्ता है, उनके लिए दाम जो है उसको कितना अंकुश उस पर लगाया जा सकता है। और इसके आज जो सरकार ने निर्णय लिया है, उसके अलावा ये भी चल रहा है कि अगर आयात करने की जरूरत पड़े गेहूं को, वो भी किया जाएगा ताकि दाम जो है, कीमतें जो है, उनको नियंत्रित किया जा सके। तो जो मैसेज जो है अथॉरिटीज की तरफ से और जो इंटरवेंशन जो बाजार में किया जा रहा है, वो जाहिर सी बात है कि दाम जो है उनको कम करने के लिए किया जा रहा है। थोड़ा असर इसका दिखेगा क्योंकि हम सप्लाई बढ़ा रहे हैं बाजार में और मार्केट को ये एश्योरेंस दे रहे हैं, ये आश्वासन दे रहे हैं कि सरकार की तरफ से अगर जरूरत पड़ेगी तो सप्लाई को बढ़ाया जा सकता है, सप्लाई में कोई इशू नहीं है। तो मार्केट के लिए एक डायरेक्ट संदेश है कि हम इंटरवेंशन के लिए तैयार हैं और दाम जो है हम बढ़ने नहीं देंगे किसी भी हालत में।
जी।
So Deepshika, one is an inflation which is in figures, and we talk a lot about those in the program, and one is of course inflation which hits the pocket, actually, and from the pocket actually to the plate. So in terms of this step being taken and other steps also being taken to moderate prices of at least of food grains, the basic carbohydrate input that goes into diets, How do you think that this is going to affect that pocket of the common person?
The entire strategy of both the government and the Reserve Bank has been to bring down inflation. But this year, we've seen the weather gods have really played truant, and, we've seen unseasonal rains, and which has sort of fed into food inflation. And that impact is visible on the, prices. Not just of seasonal vegetables and fruits, but obviously grains also are facing because of the unseasonal rains, there's been a wide disparity in the way, we received rains. So that has impacted the sowing. So government is taking preemptive measures to ensure that there is no, large impact, deep impact of, these factors on prices. So these are preemptive interventions which are happening. The idea is to keep inflation in check and also ensure that, it doesn't impact households' budgets. So we did see, when tomato prices were really sort of skyrocketing, we saw interventions in terms of, NAFED selling it at a lower price. So these interventions are largely directed at ensuring that, households' budget sort of don't get impacted that hard. And also the inflation is also kept in check because the government obviously would want inflation not to go up, especially because the expectation is that the RBI is to keep the rates, is not to raise rates. And in fact, the expectation building up is that maybe in 2 quarters, maybe it cuts rates. So I think the whole idea is to ensure that the inflation remains in check.
Right. So wanting your opinion at a global level, I mean, we have navigated these difficult times, whether by, policy or by different ways, rather well. But at the global level, we are seeing nations are struggling. And there was some time back conversations about, food security being a huge issue. And we are a huge population also. So where do you think we are positioned actually in the future, in terms of, creating at least food for the globe or global surplus, because Ukraine is going to still struggle and it's going to take some time to come back, which were actually one of the major suppliers. How do you see India's positioning?
See, India has been very clear that we can provide food to the world, but the priority and which the government has clearly sort of identified is that that will not come at a cost to, Indian consumers.
Okay.
In prices for Indian consumers would be kept in check. So there have been import bans like, on rice recently. So the idea is that, you are keeping a balance. The G2G exports are not sort of impacted by these bans. So if there is a country which is in need of some support, India would be ready to offer it. But we are sort of preventing that, hoarding or trading globally, because even that happens at the global level. So we are preventing that from happening. One can raise issues about, we are not letting our farmers earn or traders, establish global markets. But then we also have to look at food security. We also have to look at, households here in India and see how the pricing is getting impacted. Yeah. So the priorities have been clearly sort of identified in that sense.
उत्तर भारत में अभी तक जो मानसून की चाल रही है, क्या उसका भी आने वाले समय में जो फसल आएगी, अब खरीफ की फसलें आनी हैं, तो कीमतों पे आप असर देखती हैं कमी होने का?
देखिए, जो आशंका व्यक्त की जा रही है कि थोड़ा असर, क्योंकि बुआई जो है वो उस पर असर हुआ है, तो जाहिर सी बात है कि फसल पर भी थोड़ा असर हो सकता है। और इसीलिए हम देख रहे हैं कि ये इंटरवेंशंस जो हैं किए जा रहे हैं, क्योंकि इस बार जो है बारिश जो है बहुत बहुत ही डिस्पैरिटी रही है, उसका डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन बहुत अनइवन रहा है। तो उसका जाहिर सी बात है कि आउटपुट पे असर हो सकता है। कितना असर होगा वो हमें कुछ समय में पता चलेगा, लेकिन ये जो इंटरवेंशन सरकार की तरफ से किए जा रहे हैं इसीलिए किए जा रहे हैं कि कोई जो अंदेशा मार्केट में या बाजार में जो एप्रीहेंशंस होने लगते हैं उसको किस तरह से रीअश्योरेंस किया जाए लोगों को और कीमतों को कंटेन किया जाए.
We move on to our next story. The Parliament today passed the Digital Personal Data Protection Bill 2023 with the Rajya Sabha approving it. The bill has already been passed in the Lok Sabha. The bill has provisions for the processing of digital personal data in a manner that recognizes both the right of the individuals to protect their personal data and the need to process such personal data for lawful purposes. According to the bill, a person may process the personal data of an individual for a lawful purpose on the basis of their consent and for certain legitimate uses. The bill has a provision to set up the Data Protection Board of India. The board, on receipt of an intimation of a personal data breach, will inquire into the matter and impose penalties. While determining the amount of monetary penalty to be imposed, the board will consider the nature, gravity and duration of the breach and the type and nature of the personal data affected by the breach. The bill states that individuals have a right to correction, completion, updating and erasure of their personal data of which they have previously given consent. Deepshika, an important bill, an important big first step. What are your views on this?
Definitely. I think this is a very historic bill in the sense that, we are having such a framework for the first time. We are putting it in place for the first time. And we are some of the early recognizers in the sense that India has really pioneered this framework. Because we've seen how data is getting used and, these days it is often said that data is the new oil. So all countries are moving towards protecting their data and how they can use the data. So obviously a framework was required, how to protect privacy, how to protect consumers, how to protect the common man whose data would be used at various levels. So this framework which we are trying to create will ensure protection to the common man so that his data is not misused and abused and he gets certain rights in that. And also it would make it mandatory, it would place obligations on the entities that consume this data and also are supposed to take care of this data. At present, there is no authority which sort of ensures that a company or any entity for that matter which is taking data from you doesn't have the mandate to protect it, or even if it has the mandate, which law, which authority will take care, which ensure that it adheres to these norms. So this data protection bill will ensure that. It will structure a data protection board which would be an authority which will ensure that this framework is adhered to by different entities.
Okay. And in terms of, when we see that we're also now, of course, lots of caution and warnings are coming about how we share data. But for the individual level, for the people who are at the client side, anything that you say, as a word of caution for whenever we give out our data?
Definitely. Everyone has to be cautious, especially with regard to financial data. And I think banks, RBI, even the government authorities regularly are putting out these alerts and messages that you should not share your passwords, ATM pins. You should be cautious while using your ATM cards in ATM machines or debit cards outside also. You are supposed to cover your hand when you're punching the pin. Besides, do not, give out information on people calling you on a random basis. You get a lot of spam calls seeking different kind of information like your date of birth or your Aadhaar number. So people are obviously warned not to share any kind of personal data to any random person, entity or an individual seeking it.
जी, अपनी व्यक्तिगत जानकारी के बारे में हमें खुद भी सतर्क रहना होगा, सजग रहना होगा। रुक करते हैं शेयर बाजारों का। घरेलू शेयर बाजार आज मामूली बढ़त के साथ बंद हुए। बॉम्बे स्टॉक एक्सचेंज का सेंसेक्स 66,000 के करीब बंद हुआ, जबकि नेशनल स्टॉक एक्सचेंज का निफ्टी 19,600 के स्तर से ऊपर पहुंच गया। वैश्विक शेयर बाजारों में प्राप्त मिले जुले संकेतों के बीच दोनों शेयर सूचकांकों में बढ़त दर्ज हुई। सेंसेक्स 149 अंक की वृद्धि से 0.23% ऊपर 65,996 अंक पर बंद हुआ। निफ्टी भी 62 अंक की वृद्धि से 0.32% चढ़कर 19,633 पर पहुंच गया। विस्तृत बाजार पर नजर डालें तो बीएसई मिड कैप इंडेक्स 0.39% की बढ़त में रहा। स्मॉल कैप इंडेक्स में 0.57% की तेजी दर्ज हुई।
The key domestic share indices today logged marginal gains. The BSE Sensex finished near the 66,000 mark, while the NSE Nifty ended above the 19,600 level. Both indices rose amid mixed cues from global stocks. The BSE Sensex gained 149 points or 0.23% to close at 65,996. The NSE Nifty also rose 62 points or 0.32% to settle at 19,633. In the broader market at the BSE, the mid-cap index rose 0.39%, while the small-cap index gained 0.57%. In the Sensex index, which is a pack of 30 companies, shares of 17 companies appreciated while 13 declined. JSW Steel surged 2.7%, Tata Motors climbed 2.6%, and Mahindra advanced 2.4%. On the other hand, Bajaj Finance and Maruti both slumped 0.9%, followed by ICICI Bank declined 0.8%. In sectoral indices at the BSE, 17 sectors indices rose while 3 logged losses. Among the top gainers, metal rose 2.3%, while oil and gas and consumer durables both gained 1.2%. The energy sector index added 1.1%. On the other side, realty index declined 1.3%, while financial services and BankX both added 0.2%. The overall market breadth was positive as shares of 2,028 companies appreciated, while 1,560 companies declined. A total of 155 shares remained unchanged. Deepshika, we're seeing the movement, and even like yesterday also we saw that the markets opened down, but towards the end of the day they really pick up, and then come into the green for many stocks. Is this a pattern or is there a reason for this?
I think I would see it as more a movement towards consolidation. If you see last few weeks, barring a few days, market was steadily rising. And now, obviously, there is some bit of nervousness in global markets. So we've seen foreign funds pulling out a bit because of what happened in the US with their banks in terms of ratings. So that nervousness was seen, and also because the RBI policy is awaited, so I think the market's also in the wait and watch mode. But overall direction, I think the sense which one is getting from the market is that, very sharp, jumpy increases may not be. The market would remain sort of stable in the sense and consolidate the gains that, were made.
That's healthy, right? Definitely healthier for the markets rather than, jumpy increases and then sudden fall.
In the sense, increases are definitely welcome, I would say, but with the nervousness that you're seeing in the global markets, if we are able to withstand that and the markets are able to shun it, I think that would be a key thing to watch out for, and that would be a big positive for the Indian market. Because if it sort of moves on the strength of Indian economy, it looks very positive.
जी, आपने रिजर्व बैंक की एमपीसी मौद्रिक नीति की बात की, तो अभी जो मीटिंग चल रही है, कल नतीजे आएंगे उसके मौद्रिक नीति समिति की, तो आपको लगता है कि रिजर्व बैंक अभी दरें उसी सामान्य बनाए रखेगा या कुछ बदलाव की उम्मीद आप देखती हैं?
देखिए, जो समझ आ रहा है, और रिजर्व बैंक ने पहले भी बहुत बिल्कुल साफ तौर पे कह दिया था कि उनकी जो नीति है, जो डेटा दिखाएगा, डेटा के ऊपर निर्भर रहेगी। और डेटा जो है, अगर हम देखें मुद्रास्फीति का डेटा, अभी भी उसमें कंसर्न एरियाज हैं, और खास तौर पे अब जो ये सीजनल फूड इन्फ्लेशन है उससे भी बढ़ोतरी उसमें अंदेशा किया जा रहा है। तो इस समय में आरबीआई जो है ऐसा नहीं लगता है कि कुछ ऐसा बदलाव करेगा, स्टेटस को अपेक्षित है। हो सकता है लिक्विडिटी के कुछ मेजर्स वो लें, लेकिन नीति जो है, जो डायरेक्शनल है, वो डायरेक्शन जो है अभी उसमें बदलाव की उम्मीद कम लग रही है, क्योंकि डेटा जो है वो ऐसी डायरेक्शन नहीं दे रहा है, इंडिकेशन नहीं दे रहा है।
जी, कच्चे तेल की कीमतें जिस तरीके से ऊपर जा रही हैं,
जी, कच्चे तेल का वो भी एक बहुत बड़ा कंसर्न है, खासतौर से भारत के लिए, क्योंकि हम आयात करते हैं अपना कच्चा तेल, और इस समय आज भी कच्चा तेल बढ़ा, जबकि चीन की इकोनॉमी का मतलब डिफ्लेशन वहां पर है और स्लो डाउन है, वहां पर रिकवरी नहीं हो रही है। उसको लेकर के बहुत कंसर्न्स भी थे, लेकिन फिर भी कच्चे तेल का दाम बढ़ा है, तो ये एक कंसर्न एरिया है भारतीय अर्थव्यवस्था के लिए। और ये इसी का मिला जुला असर हम स्टॉक मार्केट्स पे हमें नजर आया, क्योंकि ये कंसर्न एरिया है जिसको मार्केट्स भी समझ रहे हैं, जिसका हमारी अर्थव्यवस्था पर, मैक्रो इकोनॉमी पर असर हो सकता है।
So in terms of, when we see that China is struggling, and of course in different stages the Western markets are also struggling, and India by and large has consolidated, is going strong. It's not for long that we can remain isolated. Some way we will have to, kind of link ourselves with the rest of the world, because we've really bucked the trend so far.
No, definitely. But in terms of economy, I think we'll be probably stable, because we are not largely export dependent as an economy, so we are shielded to that extent. But obviously we are not an island, we are not living in isolation, so economy would see some kind of moderation. But if you look at the domestic economy, and if you look at the fast moving indicators which have been coming out, they've been pretty robust. So the indications are that economy has been able to withstand. And we saw that IMF actually raised the growth forecast, which they had earlier reduced. So it looks like that the economy would be able to withstand the whatever developments that have been happening in the Western economies. But markets definitely would feel the heat from the Western markets, because foreign investors may pull out some investment. So, which is why I said it looks like it's heading for a consolidation phase in view of these concerns. Oil, what happens globally in terms of the new China factor, and also the Western economies continue to be in some bit of pressure.
And like the repeated message that we give all our listeners and people who are investing is to say, it's a consolidation phase, don't worry, in the long term it's a bright future, and to invest sensibly, but don't get disturbed by trends which come and go like this.
Definitely, Indian investors actually need to buy the Indian story, and Indian story remains very, very robust. And India as an economy does stand out as a bright spot. Stock markets in the long term, Indian economy definitely is poised to sort of grow, and the impact of that growth would be visible in the stock market. But yes, be rational in your investments. Please weigh in, look at the sectors which you see would be, which would give some returns going forward, which are in the focus, because of the measures that the government is taking, like steel, cement, because of the infrastructure focus. They would definitely sort of show some results. If you look at the indicators from the automobile sectors, and those sectors would do well, because obviously the performance of these sectors is looking good at this juncture.
Okay.
जी, एक आम निवेशक के दृष्टिकोण से के लिए आपको क्या लगता है कि कौन से सेक्टर्स ऐसे हैं जहां पर कि निवेश कर कुछ लाभ कमाया जा सकता है?
देखिए, जैसा कि मैंने कहा कि ये जो कुछ सेक्टर्स हैं, कुछ क्षेत्र जो हैं जिन पर सरकार जो है जो कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर कर रही है, और सरकार का बहुत बड़ा फोकस है कैपिटल एक्सपेंडिचर इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर पर, तो ये जो सेक्टर्स हैं इनमें आगे डिमांड बनी रहेगी, बढ़ेगी। और इन सेक्टर्स को जो इनके बाकी जो क्षेत्र हैं जो सपोर्ट करते हैं, तो स्टील, सीमेंट, आपका आयरन स्टील, ये जो सेक्टर्स हैं, मेटल्स के जो सेक्टर्स हैं, ये इनको सपोर्ट मिल रहा है, तो जाहिर सी बात है कि इनका परफॉर्मेंस बेटर होगा। उसके अलावा अगर आप देखें एफएमसीजी और ऑटोमोबाइल सेक्टर्स जो हैं, ये भी इनका परफॉर्मेंस जो है अच्छा रह रहा है। डिमांड जो है बनी हुई है और बहुत ही रोबस्ट डिमांड दिखाई दे रही है। अगर आप पिछले महीने के, इस महीने के भी पैसेंजर व्हीकल सेल्स को देख लें, तो ये कुछ सेक्टर्स हैं जिनको निवेशक देख सकते हैं निवेश के लिए।
जी, और अब नजर डाल लेते हैं रुपए के प्रदर्शन पर। विदेशी मुद्रा बाजार में रुपया आज डॉलर के मुकाबले 82 रुपए 82 पैसे प्रति डॉलर के स्तर पर बंद हुआ। बात करते हैं एशियाई और यूरोपीय बाजारों की। एशियाई शेयर बाजारों में आज कारोबार मिला जुला रहा। दक्षिण कोरिया के कोस्पी में 1.2% की तेजी रही और हांगकांग के हैंगसेंग में 0.3% की बढ़त दर्ज हुई। सिंगापुर का स्ट्रेट्स टाइम्स इंडेक्स 0.1% के मामूली लाभ में रहा। वहीं दूसरी तरफ जापान का निकेई और चीन का शंघाई कंपोजिट इंडेक्स दोनों 0.5% की गिरावट के साथ बंद हुए। यूरोपीय शेयर बाजारों में आज बढ़त का रुख था। अंतर्देशीय कारोबार में लंदन का FTSE 100 0.8%, फ्रांस का CAC 40 1.1% और जर्मनी का डेक्स 1% की बढ़त के साथ कारोबार कर रहे थे।
A quick look at the U.S. markets. All three major U.S. benchmark stocks finished lower yesterday in a broad sell-off after the downgrading of several lenders by credit rating agency Moody. Investors sold amid fear about the health of U.S. banks and the economy. The Dow Jones Industrial Average fell 0.5%, the S&P 500 slipped 0.4%, and the Nasdaq Composite Index declined 0.8%. We earlier spoke about the oil prices. A look at the oil prices now. Brent crude oil prices today hit the highest level since April as tighter supply owing to Saudi and Russian output cuts offset concerns over slow demand from China and a report of rising U.S. crude inventories. The crude was trading more than 0.5% up when reports last came in. In intraday trade, Brent crude was trading at $86.60 per barrel. West Texas Intermediate crude price was at $83.50 per barrel when reports last came in. Deepshika, first a little bit about the U.S. market. Of course, and we've seen that the indices have gone down. There has been a downrating by Moody's. Do you think this effect is likely to last long?
I think this effect will last for some, maybe a few days, but overall I think the way US economy has been going, investors have been getting confident about the economy, sort of a soft landing for the US economy because of what Fed has been saying. So I don't think that this impact will last for very long. There were concerns, these concerns which the Moody's has flagged now, they had been flagged for some time, and I think markets had discounted these concerns already. And which now, since the decision has come by Moody's, and that has sort of had its impact, I think it will play out over the next few days, and probably markets would return to normalcy.
But in terms of oil prices, and they are an area of concern, as you'd earlier said, you think we have sufficient stocks and we are quite safe in India?
Definitely, and our policy of buying oil from Russia has helped, and I think government will continue with that. So in those terms, we are shielded. Yeah. Right.
और अब बात कीमती धातुओं की। मल्टी कमोडिटी एक्सचेंज में अक्टूबर में आपूर्ति किए जाने वाले सोने का मूल्य अंतर्देशीय कारोबार में समाचार तैयार किए जाने तक 59,220 रुपए प्रति 10 ग्राम पर चल रहा था। वहीं दूसरी ओर सितंबर अनुबंध वाली चांदी आज 200 रुपए टूटकर 70,010 रुपए प्रति किलोग्राम के स्तर पर कारोबार कर रही थी। अंतर्राष्ट्रीय बाजार में न्यूयॉर्क मर्केंटाइल एक्सचेंज में अंतर्देशीय कारोबार के दौरान सोना गिरावट के साथ $1,959 प्रति औंस पर कारोबार कर रहा था।
Well, I think we've spoken earlier of prices. We've spoken of crude oil. I think it's been by and large a great coverage. So thank you very much for Deepshika for coming on to our show and sharing your valuable inputs with us. And now, before we close, a quick reminder of the headlines. Government to sell 50 lakh tons of wheat and 25 lakh tons of rice in the open market to check retail prices. Parliament passes Digital Personal Data Protection Bill 2023. Key domestic stocks witnessed modest gains amid mixed global cues. Sensex closes near the 66,000 mark. Nifty settles above 19,600 level. And Brent crude hits highest level since April to trade above $86.50 per barrel. And that's it in this edition of Market Mantra. Namaskar.
Market Mantra.